take away the sun. In its place, set down this single object and watch what happens to the sky you know. Its shadow does not stop at the orbit of Mercury or Venus or even the Earth. It spreads outward, cold and silent, past the red deserts of Mars, past the storm belts of Jupiter, past the rings of Saturn. It swallows the orbit of Pluto whole, and it keeps going, out into the dark where the planets end. This is not a star. Nothing burns inside it. It is a hole in the fabric of everything, and it has a name. Astronomers call it TON 618, and, by every model we have of how the early universe was supposed to grow, it should not be able to exist. To find it, you have to look almost as far as looking is possible. TON 618 sits roughly 10.4 billion light-years from Earth, near the boundary between what we call the deep field and the edge of the observable past. The light arriving in our telescopes tonight did not leave that object recently. It left when the universe was young, barely a fifth of its present age, long before the sun had formed, long before there was an Earth for anyone to stand on and wonder. What reaches us is a message sent across most of the history of time itself. The instruments that first caught it saw one of the brightest single points in the distant sky. It is classed as a quasar, one of the most luminous kinds of object the cosmos has ever produced. Yet the light is not the object. The object at the center gives off nothing at all. What blazes is the last cry of matter being torn apart as it falls inward, heated to the edge of destruction in the moment before it crosses over and is gone. The brilliance you see is not life. It is the glow of an enormous, endless dying. There is a cruel elegance to that. The very quality that makes TON 618 visible across almost the entire width of the observable universe is the destruction happening at its threshold. A quieter black hole, one that had finished feeding, would give off nothing and vanish from our sight completely. We can only see this one because it is still, in some sense, eating. The brightness is a symptom, and the size of it is not the most unsettling part of this story. Begin with something you can hold in your mind. At the heart of TON 618 lies its event horizon, the boundary past which nothing returns, not matter, not light, not information of any kind. That boundary is estimated to be around 1,300 astronomical units across. One astronomical unit is the distance from the Earth to the Sun, about 150 million kilometers. So this single horizon is roughly 1,300 times wider than the gap between us and our own star. Look at our solar system. Pluto, out at the cold rim of everything the Sun holds, orbits at an average of about 40 astronomical units. The entire realm of the planets, the whole familiar architecture of our home, fits inside 40 of those units. The shadow of TON 618 is more than 30 times wider than that. If you could set this black hole where the sun is, its darkness alone would engulf every world we have ever named, with room to spare many times over. There is no vantage point inside our own system from which you could see past it. It would simply be the sky, just the dark. Even light strains to convey it. The most distant probe humanity has ever launched, Voyager 1, has been flying outward for more than 40 years and has only recently crossed beyond the edge of the sun's influence. It would take that same spacecraft, at its blistering interstellar speed, tens of thousands of years merely to travel the width of this one black hole's horizon. Everything we have built, every mission we have flown, measures its reach against a boundary this object crosses in a single unbroken span of dark. If you stood at the edge of that horizon, if such a thing were even possible, you would not see a wall or a surface. You would see the ordinary stars behind it bending and smearing around a perfect circle of absolute black, a region where the universe quietly stops. There is a strangeness buried in objects this large. We tend to imagine a black hole as something impossibly dense, matter crushed beyond all reason. That is true of small ones. But the size of a horizon grows in step with mass, and volume grows faster than that. So the very largest black holes, spread across such enormous distances, have an average density that is astonishingly low, in some cases thinner than the air you are breathing right now. The horror of TON 618 is not that it is a tightly packed stone. It is that a region of space wider than our entire planetary system has become a one-way door, and the door itself is made of almost nothing at all. Nothing you could stand on. Only geometry, only the shape of gravity itself, warped until reality has an edge. How much matter does it take to carve a hole that size into space? The current estimate is hard to hold in the mind. TON 618 is thought to contain roughly 66 billion times the mass of our Sun gathered into a single point of gravitational collapse. 66 billion suns compressed past every limit that ordinary matter can resist until not even light moves fast enough to climb back out. This places it among the most massive black holes ever measured, in a rare class astronomers call ultramassive. Black holes of the more familiar kind form when a single giant star runs out of fuel and its core falls inward under its own weight. But no dying star, however enormous, could ever leave behind 66 billion solar masses. An object like this is built over time at the center of a galaxy, feeding on gas and dust and swallowed stars across immense ages, growing heavier with everything it consumes. And this is exactly where TON 618 begins to break the picture. Because of how far away it is, we are seeing it as it was when the universe was still young. Yet even then, it was already this enormous. Our best models of the early cosmos struggle badly to explain how any black hole could pile up so much mass so quickly, so soon after everything began. There simply may not have been enough time for the ordinary, patient process of feeding to reach this scale. Something about its birth, or its appetite, runs ahead of what the theory allows. It is not a comfortable object for physics. It is a question wearing the shape of a void. The theory strains for a reason. There is a natural speed limit on how fast a black hole can feed. It is called the Eddington limit. When matter falls in and heats up, the radiation it throws off pushes outward against the very gas that is trying to fall in. Feed too fast, and the black hole essentially blows away its own meal. That limit means growth should be slow and patient, a matter of billions of years. Yet TON 618 was already fully grown when the universe had only a fraction of that time to offer. To account for it, astronomers have had to reach for less ordinary beginnings, seeds far heavier than a single collapsing star, perhaps whole clouds of gas falling straight into darkness without ever forming stars at all, giving the process a violent head start. Which explanation is correct is still an open question. What is certain is that the standard gentle story does not fit what we see. The glow we detect comes from that appetite made visible. As gas spirals toward the horizon, it forms a vast flattened whirlpool called an accretion disk. Friction and gravity heat that in falling matter to extraordinary temperatures, and it radiates with a force that is hard to put into words. TON 618 shines with an estimated luminosity on the order of 140 trillion times that of the Sun. To picture that, imagine gathering more than 100 trillion stars like ours and lighting them all at once, then knowing that this single dark object outshines them from a space no wider than a small corner of a galaxy. That searing output is the quasar we see. It is the light of matter screaming as it falls. Step back further and let the scale climb again. Our own galaxy, the Milky Way, has a supermassive black hole at its center, known as Sagittarius A star. For years, it was the archetype of a monster in astronomy, the great dark heart of everything we call home. Its mass is about 4 million times that of the Sun. 4 million suns held at the pivot around which 200 billion stars slowly turn. Now set that beside TON 618, 66 billion against 4 million. This distant object is more than 15,000 times heavier than the black hole anchoring our entire galaxy. 15,000 Milky Way hearts gathered into one. If you replace Sagittarius A star with TON 618, the center of our galaxy would no longer be a quiet, well-behaved anchor. It would be a blazing quasar, and the inner light of the Milky Way would be rewritten around a single devouring point. If Sagittarius A star is the dark heart of the Milky Way, then TON 618 is something for which our galaxy offers no comparison at all. It does not merely sit at the center of its own galaxy. In brightness, it outshines the galaxy that surrounds it, so completely that from this distance we can no longer see the host at all. The stars, the spiral arms, the hundreds of billions of other suns are drowned in the light of the thing devouring them from within. An entire galaxy, with all its worlds and all its possible histories, reduced to a faint smudge behind the glare of a single wound in space. We are not looking at a star that grew too large. We are looking at an object that has eclipsed a galaxy. One more way to feel the gulf. To assemble 66 billion solar masses, a black hole must swallow the equivalent of billions upon billions of stars, or the raw gas that would have become them. Whole populations of suns that might have warmed worlds and lit skies, drawn instead into a single point of no return. Every gram of that mass was once something else, gas from the young universe, the makings of stars that were never allowed to finish. Ton 618 is, in a sense, a graveyard of everything a galaxy might have been, folded down into a darkness 11 light days wide. For most of human history, none of this could be known. Ton 618 was first recorded in 1957 in a photographic survey carried out at the Tonantzintla Observatory in Mexico. That survey is where the name comes from, Tonantzintla, and a catalog number. On those early plates, it appeared as nothing dramatic, just a faintly blue point of light among countless others. For a time, it was taken to be a dim, unremarkable star inside our own galaxy, one more speck in a sky already crowded with them. The truth took decades to surface. Only later, as astronomers learned to read the spectrum of light an object emits and to measure how far that light has been stretched by the expansion of the universe, did the faint blue point reveal what it truly was. Its light was shifted far toward the red, the fingerprint of an enormous distance and an ancient origin. This was no nearby star. It was a quasar near the edge of the observable universe, one of the most luminous objects ever catalogued, and it had been hiding a monster in plain sight on a photographic plate for years. The mass itself came later still, and by an indirect road. No telescope can resolve the black hole at the center of Ton 618. It is far too distant and far too small on the sky. Instead, astronomers read the light of the glowing gas around it. The broad smears in its spectrum reveal how fast that gas is whirling, and the speed of the whirl betrays the pull of whatever sits at the center. From those measurements comes the estimate of roughly 66 billion solar masses. It is worth being honest about this. That figure carries real uncertainty, and different methods disagree at the edges. But even the cautious versions of the number leave Ton 618 among the most massive objects of its kind ever found. The uncertainty is in the last digits, not in the horror of the scale. And with that distance comes the strangest truth of all. Because the light has traveled for roughly 10.4 billion years to reach us, everything we say about Ton 618 is a report from the deep past. We are not watching it as it is. We are watching a fossil of light, a portrait of an object as it existed when the cosmos was young. Whatever Ton 618 has become in the 10 billion years since that light departed, we cannot know and will not know for ages yet. The quasar may have long since fallen quiet, its fuel exhausted, the great glow faded to darkness. The blaze we chase across our sky may be the memory of a fire that has already gone out. We are haunted by it. 10 billion years is a long time to drift. A quasar burns only while it feeds, and no black hole feeds forever. As the gas around it thins, the accretion disk dims, the great light fades, and what remains is the black hole itself, silent and invisible, still holding all 66 billion solar masses, but no longer announcing them to the universe. Somewhere out there, if it has run its course, Ton 618 may now be exactly that, a dark titan drifting at the center of an aging galaxy, undetectable, waiting. And time, which passes so strangely near such an object, does not touch it as it touches us. Close to that horizon, gravity slows the very flow of moments. A clock lowered toward the edge would tick slower and slower, seen from far away, until at the boundary itself it would appear to stop entirely, frozen forever at the threshold. Nothing ever quite finishes falling in. It fades, redder and slower, toward a stillness with no end. Come back one last time to the size of the thing, and this time do not look away. That event horizon, 1,300 astronomical units across, spans roughly 390 billion kilometers of pure, returnless dark. Numbers on that scale slide off the mind, so anchor it in the one thing that crosses the cosmos faster than anything else. Light. Sunlight takes about 8 minutes to cross the distance from the Sun to the Earth. 8 minutes for the fastest thing in existence to reach us from our own star. Now take that same beam of light and send it across the face of TON 618 from one edge of the event horizon to the other. It would need about 11 days, not 8 minutes. 11 days of unbroken travel at 300,000 kilometers every second, simply to cross the shadow of a single object. Light itself, moving at the ultimate speed the universe permits, would spend nearly 2 weeks passing over this one silent hole. Hold those two journeys side by side. The beam that warms your face, crossing our whole inner solar system in the time it takes to boil an egg. And a beam that would spend a week and a half merely traversing the dark mouth of TON 618, never touching a surface, never striking anything, because there is nothing there to strike, only the boundary and then the fall. The distance from the Sun to the Earth would fit across that horizon not once but tens of thousands of times over. This is not a bigger version of something familiar. It is a different order of thing entirely, a scale at which our ordinary units simply give up. And now, the loop we opened at the beginning can close. This is why it should not be able to exist. Not only because it is impossibly large, but because it is impossibly large, impossibly early, a 66 billion solar mass void already fully grown in the young universe, wider than 11 days of light, brighter than the galaxy it hides inside. It stands at the far edge of what we can observe, and at the far edge of what we can explain, a boundary in space and a boundary in understanding at once. Push your gaze past it, past the horizon, past the last light of the falling gas, and there is nothing left to describe. The physics we have simply ends at that surface, and beyond it lies a dark we have no words for. This is where it leaves us. A single object, 66 billion times the mass of the Sun, wide enough to hold 11 days of light, so distant that its glow is older than the Earth and the Sun combined. And human beings, standing on a small warm world for the brief flicker of a lifetime, are able to look up, measure it, and give it a name. That may be the strangest scale of all, the vast gulf between how little we are and how far we can see. There is no danger in it for us. TON 618 is 10 billion light-years away, and nothing about it will ever reach the Earth. The threat it poses is not to the body, but to the imagination, to the quiet human assumption that we understand the scale of things. It sits at the outer limit of the observable universe and at the outer limit of our theories at the same time, and in both places it seems to say the same thing, that the cosmos is larger, older, and stranger than the models we built to hold it, and that some of what it contains was already there, already monstrous, before our story had even begun. TON 618 is out there still, or was 10 billion years ago, turning slowly in a silence older than almost everything. Its light is still falling toward us across the dark, and long after this is over, it will still be coming. The universe is mostly silence and dark. New cosmic documentaries every week. Subscribe to stand at the edge of the cosmic abyss.